So last Friday and Saturday, I'll explain. I went to go and see Scream 6. So Scream 6 is the surprisingly soon sequel of last year's Scream, which is really Scream 5, but they didn't call it Scream 5. So now you had Scream 4 in the early 2010s, then Scream, and then Scream 6. So that's what we're dealing with. I think it's kind of funny because lately with these beloved movie franchises, you know, you have to wait years for a sequel. Like this month alone, we have Creed 3, John Wick 4, and Shazam 2, which isn't really a beloved franchise, but it's still like a sequel of a blockbuster. And the previous movies in those franchises came out in either 2018 or 2019, while, you know, you have Scream 6 and Last Scream came out last year. So, you know, since they only had 14 months to work with between the release of the prior movie and the release of this one, I was really questioning things, especially once I heard Neve Campbell wasn't going to be in this one, and she plays Sidney Prescott, who's been the star of all the previous Scream movies. So, you know, it just had a very different vibe to it. Could Scream survive without Neve Campbell, and could it be any good after only a year? It blew away all my expectations. But actually getting to see this movie and finish it was very hard. Friday night, you know, my girlfriend and I we go for a 9:30 showing, and things are good. You know, first half hour is a bit of talking in the movie theater, but you know, when it's a packed 9:30 showing, of course there's gonna be a bit of talking, you know? But suddenly we hear that talking get louder and louder, and at first we thought it was just background noise in the movie because, you know, it's in New York City. People talk in New York City. It's a very loud city. But once we hear people really raise their voices, we're like, oh shit, this is happening in our theater. And, you know, suddenly people were swearing at each other, and, you know, we weren't at a movie theater that was necessarily in the safest town, so we got right out of there. And, you know, my girlfriend has a friend who works there, and he sent her this video of what happened after we left. And while we were leaving, you know, like literally right as we were leaving, the cops were showing up. So, you know, it was a great time. And we go back Saturday, one, to get refunds, and we got refunded with like these passes to go and see 4 movies. And one of the movies we saw was seeing Scream again. And it went great. You know, watching Scream, it was great overall. You know, nothing happened, and she surprisingly liked it.
I genuinely really enjoyed it, and now I want to see like every single slasher movie that ever exists.
All right, so now about the movie. The New York setting was a great place for Scream to find itself. You know, it really kind of brought into question the idea of safety in numbers, because at some point there's too many numbers, and when there's too many numbers, that's when it gets scary. And that's what that New York City setting is for, when there's so many people where, you know, things can go on without all those people even realizing what's happening. I feel like the opening was probably the most creative Scream opening, or really slasher movie opening I've seen. I think those first 15 minutes were just so creative and really threw you for a loop a little bit, but not too much to seem unbelievable. And they really made you feel like this ghost face was really new, and it's something that we haven't seen before. You know, a lot of times movies say that in the trailers and they don't deliver on it, but it really felt like it was going to be delivered on, and I think it was delivered on. Like, this ghost face was scary, and some of the scenes with him were super, super suspenseful and gore-filled. This is probably the bloodiest Scream movie that they have ever made, even though it was one of the bloodiest Scream movies, or probably the bloodiest Scream movie ever made. It didn't really feel like any important characters died in the movie. It really, like, I kind of left the theater and I was like, huh, you know, we're in a very similar place leaving this movie as we were leaving the last Scream movie. You know, nothing for the franchise as a whole really changed that much, I felt like. But despite that, I think that that's a small flaw. Another little issue I saw, though, was the acting. You know, most of the acting was good. Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, they killed it and had some really, really powerful scenes. But there was one guy who played the sort of dorky roommate character. His name's Jack Champion, and I literally thought he was Noah Centineo for a second, and I had to like look him up after the show, after watching it. I was like, that's not Noah Centineo. That's the guy who played Spider in Avatar 2, and I thought he did a good job as Spider. So to see him now in this movie where he really falls flat and like every single line just doesn't feel believable at all, it's like it feels like a low budget Netflix rom-com when he's on the screen, you know? And it did throw me off a little bit. But, you know, overall, I had a really good time. And I'm extremely excited to see what they do in Scream 7. You know, I love the pairing of Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. They kill it. And I can only imagine where the franchise is going to go next. Hopefully they bring back Neve Campbell and we'll get to see Sydney again. You know, like hopefully they'll bring back Rocky for Creed and we'll get to see Rocky again in those movies. But even without her, Scream still survives. I think this is the best Scream movie that we have seen since the original, which is kind of funny because I thought last year's Scream was the best movie we've seen since the original. This tops it a little bit. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. But how about you guys? You know, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the movie. You know, do you agree with what I think? Do you disagree? Have you not seen it yet? Do you plan on seeing it? Are you waiting till it gets released on, you know, streaming on Paramount Plus, on whatever, to take a look? You know, let me know. And thank you for watching.